Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the best wrestling podcast from pillar to post, Petree's Pit. I'm your host, Ray Petree, joined once again by my co host, my tag team partner, the Arn Anderson and my Tully Blanchard, JDO. Talk to him, Jordan.
Going on, brother? Going on, everybody? Ready for another one?
Episode 9, Petree's Pit. Before we get started, please like the video, share it with your friends, comment, tell us if we're right, wrong, stupid, or brilliant, and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it. I'd like to see you guys stop in every Friday, every Saturday for these videos whenever they're released. We're back. Another fun topic. It's a slow month in wrestling in December, historically speaking. We have Saturday night's main event. This month we have World's End at the end of the month. But right now, not a lot going on, at least that is of note. So we thought we would reflect upon fall 2024. We're going to call this Best in Wrestling. Expect this to be a seasonal series where we look back at the previous season and rank what we loved and what we, what was our favorite things of the season. In this case, we're looking at matches, promos, events, shows, wrestling adjacent things, biographies, documentaries, docuseries, anything really related to wrestling. It's going to be a top five because we like lists here at Petree's Pit. This is totally unique to us. This is no way there's no objectivity here. Wrestling is a uniquely subjective thing. We all love different things. Certainly, Jordan and I agree about a lot of things, but we disagree about a lot of things as well. As I'm sure you'll find in this list, some different things on both of ours, and some things that are similar because some things are just kind of universally great. We feel like, but compared to other seasons earlier in the year, this was kind of a weaker. The beginning of the second half of the year was a little weak. You know, Bryan Danielson won his title in August. He loses it pretty shortly thereafter. Cody Rhodes has not done much as WWE champion in the last 3 months or so. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Obviously, I think we've talked about it a few times. Overall, his reign hasn't been spectacular. But yeah, especially the last few months, it's been just not a lot going on. Should pick up. Going into WrestleMania season, but yeah, it's been a little bit of a slow crawl so far.
That's exactly it. It's been a slow crawl. But that doesn't mean we haven't had good pay-per-views. We haven't had good matches, good promos. They just weren't always in the most high-profile spotlights and moments. So I guess we'll dive right in. With that said, like we said, it could be matches, promos, shows, pay-per-view events, wrestling adjacent things, moments, just singular things that happened that we really loved, people winning titles, things like that. So, this is really open to interpretation. We try to keep it pretty broad. So, with that said, one more thing. Last week I forgot to discuss the results of our Survivor Series draft and the winner. And the winner was unanimously Jordan. He received like 92% of the votes. So while I disagree with the people disagree with me. I guess it's all that really matters. Jordan, round of applause for him. He won the pony. Yeah. So maybe that's going to be on his list. I don't know. But anyways, we will get into it now. Starting at number 5, my fifth pick was CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre at Bad Blood. This was October 5th. It was a Hell in a Cell match. And, ostensibly the blow-off of their feud that's been going on since, I guess, the end of WrestleMania, when Punk came in and cost him that cash-in, or the title for the cash-in. This was a really great feud, and this was a really great culmination of everything that they've been doing, the story they've been telling. Dave Meltzer gave this 5 stars. which is rare for a WWE match. Um, if that's any indication of its quality, but I mean, it's fantastic. And I'm a huge CM Punk fan, and I'm a big Drew McIntyre fan. And I think Drew McIntyre is the kind of wrestler who, at Punk's age and in his physical conditioning, can really accentuate his talents. This was slow, methodical, classic wrestling storytelling in a cage. And, a lot of people said it's the best Hell in a Cell match of the last 20 years. I don't know if I would agree with that, but it was very good. Um, I don't know if it's better than that Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins match, but it was a great match. And, they really worked their asses off. Punk almost killing Drew McIntyre. But Jordan, what is your number five pick?
So my number 5 pick on my favorite fall 2024 wrestling topics, matches, etc., is Jey Uso winning the Intercontinental title. Obviously, this was something that people have been kind of wanting to see. Obviously, main event Jey Uso going out on his own, away from the bloodline, and he's had a bunch of singles matches for titles. He's wrestled Roman, he wrestled Gunther, and was never able to get the job done. And finally, he gets the win, albeit on Raw, which be cooler at a pay per view, but still nice to see it on Raw. Beats Braun Breaker for the IC title, um, and it was a really cool moment. Obviously Jay's really popular. I like Jay. I like he's got that aura about him, the kind of that Jeff Hardy aura about him. Just a lot of people love him, and yeah, just finally getting that win. It's kind of getting to the point where it's like, how many of these can you lose? So definitely was needed. And even though it wasn't a real long title reign, it was only like about a month, but it was definitely cool to see it, a cool moment, and so yeah, that's why it makes my list number 5.
It really goes a long way to credit Triple H for, IC title used to bounce around people. It really had become sort of inconsequential. And now winning it is such a big moment for Jay. Even if he didn't hold it for long, that moment lives in posterity as something that's really special and validates all of his success as a singles wrestler, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's the IC title obviously had become less important over the last few years, and then Gunter wins it. He holds it for as long as he does, and obviously kind of raises the profile of it back up to where it means something to win it again. Obviously he held it for a record-breaking title reign, and then Sami Zayn wins it in a big match. Now Braun Breaker has it, and Braun's obviously somebody that a lot of people expect to be one of the biggest stars in the company. Before too long. So the fact that it's been involved in some of those, some of these big matches, it's been held by some prominent guys in the company. It definitely has helped raise the profile of the title a lot more than where it was at recently.
Absolutely. My number four pick is a docu series, Queen of Villains. It released September 19th on Netflix. This goes back to the wrestling adjacent thing. Queen of Villains documents the rise of Kaoru Matsumoto, otherwise known as Dump Matsumoto, in the All Japan Women's Dojo, um, and how she became a revolutionary heel in not only Japanese women's wrestling in Joshi, but in Japanese wrestling, and went a long ways in terms of just wrestling. She got so much heat, um, kind of uh, along the same line as a Bruiser Brody. Um, she just became a monster, and would go in the stands and attack people and push the envelope for violence. Her rivalry with the Crush Gals is the majority of what this documentary is about. Linus Asuka and Chigusa Nagayo. It's really great. If you haven't seen it already, it's worth watching. Um, I loved it a lot. And it's subtitled. If you're not able to read while you watch, TV, that's concerning. But anyways, it is dubbed in English. You can watch it, and there's translation. So well worth checking out, especially if you have any passing interest in women's wrestling, Japanese women's wrestling. It's super approachable and really explains things from point A to Z really well. So, um, what about you?
Um, I was gonna say, about the Queen of Villains because I myself have not seen it. But I do know that in some cases, when it comes to like documentaries in general, and then wrestling documentaries, sometimes the details can be a little fudged. Sometimes things can be, rewritten. Sometimes there are things that are left out, important details. How was like the accuracy of the documentary? Was it pretty accurate in how things went? Were things changed a little bit to make it more interesting? Overall, how was that balanced in terms of the documentary itself?
I think like most docu series, some things chronologically are lost or skewed for the sake of the story. I mean, in terms of the accuracy of it, I don't know much about Dump Matsumoto's personal life prior to becoming a wrestler. I know she was a consultant on the show, so I would assume um, that in the world of wrestling, you don't really know what's real and what's fake. Um, in terms of the her career and what she accomplished with the Crush Gals and how she revolutionized wrestling in Japan, most of that's very spot on. And most of and I would even go as far as to say, um, I don't think she gave herself enough credit because of how revolutionary she really was. Because she really changed the complexion of women's wrestling in Japan. She was a mentor to Bull Nakano, who went on to become one of the greatest women's wrestlers of all time, and gave her the blueprint for how heels should conduct themselves in Japanese women's wrestling. At times, I don't know if she gave herself enough credit exactly because, um, modesty, I suppose. But I think it's very accurate, and in some of the nature of some of the matches is it's very it's some of these matches are really violent for those who haven't seen the show like Jordan, and totally accurate, absolutely. Actually, in conjunction with the release of this, because it was on Netflix, the WWE posted a match between Dump Matsumoto and Bull Nakano versus the Crush Gals on their YouTube page. That is terrific, and it was in it was on WWF television in America, so not quite as violent as some of their Japanese matches, but still really good if you want to check that out. And very cool of the WWE to do. I love the synergy there, but yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So for my number four, was the AEW debut of Bobby Lashley. Now obviously, I'm a big Bobby Lashley fan. I liked him when he was, early on in WWE, all the way to now. And obviously, it was something that was expected when MVP showed up on AEW, and then Shelton Benjamin showed up on AEW. There's really one piece missing there. And obviously, then Bobby Lashley makes his debut, um, and it's a big moment. He's a big name in wrestling. He's obviously been in WWE. He was in TNA for a while, um, and just adds more star power to the AEW roster. Another guy who can be a main eventer, a guy who you could potentially see as an AEW World Champion. Um, and yeah, and obviously reforming the Hurt Business, now the Hurt Syndicate in AEW. So it's definitely it will be cool going forward. They've obviously done a good job so far. Um, but yeah, just having him show up, big crowd reaction, um, and immediately going into a feud with Swerve, all around was really cool. So yeah, that moment of him coming out uh, was my number four.
Lashley debuted in the WWE right in the midst of the ruthless aggression era, so that's right in Jordan and I's wheelhouse. It's what we grew up watching, and he was a real seminal figure in that post Brock Lesnar era. A guy with that really unique combination of athleticism, size, and power. Um, he had a great run in the WWE in the last 6 years. once the Hurt Business was formed, as it was formerly known. Um, he, MVP, Shelton Benjamin, Cedric Alexander really had phenomenal synergy. They were presented in a way that looked elite, and then for whatever reason, it fizzled out, and the flame died. And MVP and Bobby Lashley have both posited publicly that there was no real reason. There was no reason given, no good reason anyway. So seeing him arrive in AEW with that hurt business, hurt syndicate presentation, and to be as dominant as he's been, it's been phenomenal, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can't have Bobby Lashley come in there and is getting jobbed in this first match. You got to have him come out and you got to have him be a dominant force like he looks like he is. And obviously, his first high profile match was against Swerve, who's former AEW World Champion. So the fact that he was brought in and is immediately been pushed as a big time talent is great because obviously in WWE his last few months there wasn't that spectacular.
Mhm.
He was kind of lost in the shuffle, which was obviously very disappointing. So now for him to be here in AEW for them to bring back the Hurt Syndicate with MVP and Shelton Benjamin to have those guys together again, which is obviously something that they really wanted to do. It's great to see, and yeah, it's very promising for the future.
Yeah, just that debut, that Fright Night episode of Dynamite, where he comes out after that Shelton Benjamin match, which was a fantastic match between Shelton and Swerve, and Lashley just looked like a smashing machine. Yeah, fantastic. This is a great choice. My number three, we're going back to mid October. Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling's inaugural show, Fortune Excellence, specifically night two, Josh Alexander versus Konosuke Takeshita for, I believe it was for the AEW International Championship. Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, the revived, is a revived promotion. Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling was formerly the Toronto territory. In recent months, Scott D'Amore, um, of TNA fame, left TNA, kind of abruptly was fired, and then it revived Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. He's a Canadian guy, I believe Eastern Canada. I believe he's from Toronto. Um, Brought back this promotion, and the marquee of the show was one of Canada's finest wrestlers, Josh Alexander, being at the show, uh, and in this instance facing Konosuke Takeshita. Um, I'm a huge Josh Alexander fan. It's unfortunate that I don't want to. This is a pejorative statement. It's unfortunate he's in TNA because he's such a good wrestler. He's so phenomenal in the ring, and his intensity is palpable. He reminds me a lot of Kurt Angle in the ring. A lot of people say that. Um, he's going to be a free agent in February of 2025, I believe. Hopefully, he goes somewhere and is able to become more prominently known. But this match is fantastic. Konosuke Takeshita, any wrestling fan knows what he can do in the ring. Um, this is just two phenomenal workers going to war at night two of Fortune Excellence. Highly recommend anyone check it out. And for me as a wrestling fan, this makes me want to purchase the next Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling pay per view because night one and night two of the show were just phenomenal. A lot of great matches, including there was a Mike Bailey versus Konosuke Takeshita match. I'm not the biggest Mike Bailey fan, but it's a good match, worth checking out. So, yeah, this was a statement maker for this promotion. Kind of on the fringe right now, but um,
Yeah, it's a great pick. Obviously, Josh Alexander, like you said, really, really good wrestler. Again, unfortunately, he's not able to be in front of a bigger audience. Um, Hopefully, he will. But yeah, for Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling to be able to have a guy like Josh Alexander there, be able to have Takeshita there, obviously great for them to participate. I believe Ricochet was there also.
Yeah.
So for them to have some big names like that show up is great for them when when we're reviving this wrestling promotion. Um, and yeah, just great match. Obviously, like you said, two great wrestlers. Um, but yeah, it's obviously it's a great pick. So my number three is we're gonna go a little more recently, and it actually happened this past Monday on Raw, and it was the New Day heel turn segment promo. Um, obviously, the New Day, they were doing the celebration 10 years of the New Day. Um, they've with Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, and Big E. Um, obviously, they've been a staple within the tag team division there for all that time. You've had Kofi Mania when Kofi Kingston won the WWE Championship at WrestleMania versus Bryan Danielson. Then you had Big E win the WWE Championship. Unfortunately, he injured his neck. He's been out for, I believe, it's almost 2 years now. Um, and they've been teasing obviously friction between Kofi and Xavier, um, and it finally culminated in this segment when Big E came back and tried to you know bring them both back together again. You know, re, you know bring back the good vibes that they had and to squash this beef that they had. And then things took a turn that I know I personally didn't see coming. I don't believe a lot of other people did either. That Kofi and Xavier turned on Big E and basically accused him of abandoning them, of saying that he was taking his sweet time coming back from a neck injury, um, and picking his girlfriend over them, all these different things. And it was just such a phenomenal heel turn, because obviously the New Day's been so popular. Kofi and Xavier are both popular guys, both well liked, so for them to be heels, you kind of need to really turn them heel. And I mean, this was great in every form. I mean, Kofi's obviously one of the nicest guys that I think they in the company. And I mean, they were booing him out of the building. People all over social media were, couldn't believe it. It was such a terrible thing to say to a guy after he breaks his neck.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, just I loved it. I thought it was great. Obviously the New Day, they really haven't been interesting to me recently. Haven't done a whole lot. So this just brought me all the way back in, and I'm really interested to see how this new Kofi and Xavier, you know, duo, this new heel tag team that I'm assuming they're going to be, new version of the New Day, I guess. I'm really interested to see it. It really piqued my interest and really makes me want to see where things go moving forward. So I just thought it was great. It was one of the best heel turn promos I've seen in quite a while.
We talk about swerving expectation, suspending disbelief. We all expected the implosion of Woods and Kofi Kingston. And instead, you have these moments. I think, Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels comes to mind. Um, the friendship celebration between Jericho and Kevin Owens comes to mind. You knew something was going to happen, some kind of big event. I don't think anyone expected both of them to turn heel. To your point, which um, it's one thing if the fans want someone to turn heel, then it's hard to turn heel because people will cheer for you more than they will boo you. But this was a real uh, heat getting moment. I mean, if people are going to hate them, this is why. I mean, what they said to Big E was just it, it wasn't just harsh. It wasn't just real. It was ridiculous. It was demonstrative. It was terrible. You fault a guy for breaking his neck and turning his back on you. It's a great moment, and it speaks to Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston's immense talent. The New Day. I was never the biggest fan of the New Day, but you have to respect how much talent exists in that tag team between all three men. Now both of them, they're both super good in the ring, on the mic, at portraying emotion. This was a masterclass. Yeah, this was a great choice, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was like I said, it was sorely needed for them to go in a new direction. They've really just been kind of spinning their wheels, not doing anything. So it definitely is great, a refreshing change for both of them. And also too, the great part of it is that they're using things that are have truly happened. I mean, Big E did break his neck. He has been gone for a really long time. Um, they brought up his girlfriend, who everybody knows about. It's Meechin's sister, I think. They brought up that, which is a real life thing. So to bring those things in and use them in this is great. And obviously, there's still some uncertainty of like, does this mean that Big E is going to get back in the ring? Is he going to be cleared? You know, I don't think that they would do this if he wasn't.
Hmm.
Uh, but you never know. Maybe they just used it to get heat on Kofi and Xavier, and they'll go off and do something else.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things they could do. So, yeah, just overall a great moment, great promo, and definitely adds intrigue going into the WrestleMania season.
Yeah, the magic of this is that it's yet another tag team. WWE slowly um, rebuilding this tag team division. And they have a heel New Day, the Motor City Machine Guns, the Usos are back together. They have the Grills of Destiny, Tama Tonga and Tongaloa. They have a stable, a bullpen of teams now, and that they're slowly acquiring. It looks like eventually they'll have the Lucha Brothers. Um, I think when Triple H is ready, he's going to pull the trigger on this tag team division, and it's going to be fiercely competitive on both brands, um, including your boys, the Motor City Machine Guns. My number two, Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander, All Out 2024. This was September 7th. It was a Chicago street fight. Um, I review all Elite Wrestling shows for the Augusta Free Press. I review Dynamite every week and the pay-per-views whenever they occur. When I reviewed this, I gave this match 4 stars. I gave Will Ospreay versus Pac 4.25 stars. And this is kind of this is why star ratings are a little infallible because admittedly, I didn't give this match enough credit. When I watched it, I loved it, and the more I think about it, in the context of women's wrestling in general, and the women's wrestling landscape in AEW, and just broadly in America in general, this is one of my favorite women's matches I've seen ever. I mean, quite frankly, ever. It's so great. You and I watched together. We were constantly shocked. I mean, at no point in the match did we feel underwhelmed. Did we feel like this wasn't the catharsis these two needed after telling such a long story? Their feud was great. It had a clear reason for Chris Statlander betraying Willow Nightingale. They had a lot of matches. Maybe you could say it went on a little too long, but this was a great culmination of all of it. And I regret not giving this 4.25 or even higher score. This was a phenomenal match. I've watched it back and I loved it just as much the second time as I did first time. So yeah, these two killed it, and I know you love this match too.
Oh yeah, yeah. This I was contemplating putting this on my list as well because I did enjoy it a lot. Um, and like you said, it was just so many different shocking things happening in this match. I mean, both of these women, I mean, it looked like they were trying to kill each other.
Mhm.
I mean, just hard hitting move after hard hitting move. Um, and it's what you want in a match where two people are supposed to hate each other and are supposed to want to cause harm to the other. And I mean, just and it was obviously extreme match, weapons and blood, things like that. And sometimes that's not everybody's cup of tea. But I think this match it did enough without doing too much as far as the hardcore violence goes. Um, and yeah, just it was constantly entertaining. It wasn't a match that I ever felt like I was tuning out of. I was constantly interested and engaged the entire way through. And obviously two women that I like a lot, Chris Statlander and Willow. Um, and yeah, just overall a great culmination to that feud between those two.
Yeah, this was on the same show as that Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Page unsanctioned lights out match, and I like this match more, not only as a match, but as a street fight death match kind of, maybe not death match, but as a street fight anything goes kind of way. Yeah, I think this was fantastic. And the AW Women's Division has succeeded with these street fights in the past. This isn't the first great one. They were part of a tag team match together against another team that was fantastic in this kind of stipulation. But yeah, these two went out there and killed it. And nothing at any point ever looked like they were trying to do something safely. They never did anything too crazy, but everything seemed like it had that violent intent with it. So I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, great pick, great match. For me, my number two, circling back to what we touched on a little bit before, my number two is the dominant uh, presentation booking of the Hurt Syndicate. Obviously, I talk about my Bobby Lashley debuting in AEW, but even before that, when MVP comes in um, and starts planting the seeds of the Hurt Syndicate reforming, then you have Shelton Benjamin showing up, and for the first couple weeks, Shelton wrestling um, on Dynamite, they made him look like just a dominant force. He didn't look like just another guy, just like a mid Carter. They made him look like a force. And obviously Shelton's a great wrestler, has been a great wrestler for a long time, and wasn't ever really presented this way in WWE, which obviously something that was very disappointing about his couple of runs there. Um, but yeah, I mean, you bring in this group, the Hurt Syndicate. You don't want to bring them in half-ass. You want to bring them in, and you want them to look like a group that's going to cause issues. In the AW men's division. And because I mean, the way that they've been booked, I could see them both being guys who could contend for the title.
Mhm.
Bobby, obviously, just off of his look, his previous record, um, but even Shelton, and Shelton's more of the point I'm trying to make with this is that Bobby obviously is a main eventer, but the way that they've booked Shelton, he looks like a guy who could be a main eventer also. Um, and depending on, obviously they've planted the seeds of other people joining the group. Um, so there's only room to grow, and if it's done right, then I think you could make this group kind of what they're trying to make Moxley's group look like, the Death Riders.
Mhm.
I think they've done a much better job of making Hurt Syndicate look like a real threat than the Death Riders have. So I think that for me is why I think it's been so good, because I've been so much more interested in what the Hurt Syndicate's doing and the matches that they're in as opposed to the Death Riders. So that's why they're my number two. It makes me, you know, excited for the future of this group, and hopefully that these guys are able to, you know, win some gold, bring some more legitimacy to the group, add some more people in, maybe bring some people up with them, which is another great aspect of that, is that you can bring somebody up who's not really being used into this group and elevate them like they were trying to do with Cedric Alexander in WWE when they were the Hurt Business. So a lot of good things can come out of this if they keep booking them properly.
Yeah, they handed out the business cards, and like Swerve Strickland have said that if you aren't with the Herd Syndicate, you're against them. You're an enemy. So right there, you planted the seeds and put the pieces in place for another 6 months of storytelling. You look at Max Caster's match with Swerve Strickland on Dynamite this week. Um, Caster, is the implosion of the Acclaimed is imminent because Max Caster's vanity, and also that he's been given this business card by the Hurt Syndicate, and it's the golden ticket. If the claim doesn't work out, he can always go there, and he can work with Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley and MVP, and it, it, go- it I'll say this. I'll make two bold statements. The first is I think MVP is the best manager in professional wrestling today, and that encompasses Paul Heyman. I think right now, in terms of what he brings to the table physically on the mic, I think he's the best manager right now. I think he's, maybe when Paul Heyman was younger, Paul Heyman was better. Well, yeah, when Paul Heyman was younger, he was definitely better. But now, I would give the title to MVP. And to your point, and to agree with you, I really wish Bobby Lashley and MVP were in the driver's seat right now, and not John Moxley. I wish Bobby Lashley was the guy who beat Danielson, because these guys have the Midas touch. When they were on top on Raw in 2020, it almost made Raw worth watching at a time when it was pretty abysmal in that pre Triple H era. And like you said, the legitimacy they can give other people if they join this group is really exciting. It's something I tune in to watch these guys interact with the locker room and see who's against them and who's with them. It could be Ricochet, it could be Max Caster, it could be Mercedes Monet, it could be Private Party. You don't know, but you want to tune in to watch and see who it is long term, and that's valuable. Hopefully, it can translate to ratings. That's the only thing. That's the that's a big thing, right? Hopefully, it can draw ratings, but maybe that's not their fault necessarily. It's more of the show itself. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's kind of interesting to see it the way that they've been used, the way they've been booked, and it's you just look at it and you're just like, man, what a missed opportunity for WWE. You had them there in the Hurt Business, and all of the work that they did during the pandemic era where there weren't fans there, and then the fans come back, and as soon as the fans come back, you just split them up, and it's just like such a self-inflicted wound to not have those guys there. Now obviously WWE's hot right now, and the brand is just more important than the actual guys there. But I mean, man, just what a terrible decision that they made to just split them up and then to not bring them back at any point and just kind of let them all leave. Um, and going back to kind of how with them and the Death Riders thing, it also too kind of sets it up to where once the Death Riders versus the AW guys kind of reaches its conclusion, then you might be able to throw the Hurt Syndicate in there and be like, well, while you guys were focusing on the Death Riders, we were over here getting strong. We were building up our group, and now that you guys have used up all this energy, you've used up all this focus on the Death Riders, we're going to come in and we're going to take over. So there's things there that they can use. It opens up a lot more storytelling, a lot more matches to be had. So overall, a really good uh, decision to sign those guys and to use them the way they've used them. Just overall great. But now you're number one.
but my number one, going back to that list we did in episode 2, our 5 favorite wrestlers. We did that list right before. My favorite wrestler right now, Zack Sabre Jr., won the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship um, October 14th, King of Pro Wrestling 2024. Zack Sabre Jr. met the IWGP champion Tetsuya Naito. Sabre won the G1 Climax in the summertime, and traditionally he would cash it in at Wrestle Kingdom for that opportunity. He opted to do it at King of Pro Wrestling a little earlier in the year, or I guess not earlier in the year, at the end of 2024 as opposed to 2025. And he beat Naito, became the IWGP champion. Um, I love Zack Sabre Jr. I love his promo. I love his sensibilities. I love the way he wrestles. I love the reverence he has for the sport of professional wrestling, like a lot of our other favorite wrestlers do right now, like Gunter, guys like MJF. Zack Sabre Jr. just understands professional wrestling at its core. He's the best technical wrestler alive. I'll stand by that statement. And this match, Tetsuya Naito is very limited in what he can do physically now, and this was one of his better matches of the year. Not a great match, but a good, very good one. Mostly because of the contributions of Zack Sabre Jr. and the equity that they've built up in that rivalry. Just seeing him celebrate in the ring with his TMDK stablemates, holding that title after working so long, so many chances of trying to acquire it and failing. A beautiful moment, and the culmination of like 8 years of his hard work in New Japan Pro Wrestling, moving to that country, learning the language, becoming more than a foreign wrestler. He's more than a gaijin now. He's almost like a domestic wrestler. He's been there so long and given so much, worked so hard, and stayed after so many people have left. So to see him win that title and since then the reign he's had, the willingness to defend it, he's probably going to break the record of the current title. It's been fantastic. And not only a highlight of fall for me, but a highlight of the year. Right up there with Cody Rhodes and Bryan Danielson winning their titles. This was beautiful, especially if you're a New Japan fan who's been following Zack Sabre Jr. This was fantastic.
Yeah, Zack Saber. Obviously, I haven't seen as many of his matches as you have. His match versus Bryan Danielson at Wrestle Dream. I watched that and it was phenomenal, phenomenal match. Obviously he's phenomenal wrestler. I mean has wrestled so many different places, uh, so many big name opponents, and yeah, you love to see somebody who has put in all the work and has really built himself up to be a name worth holding a world title, and for him to be able to win the IWGP title, um, obviously tremendous accomplishment, well deserved. Um, and yeah, definitely deserving of being number one on your favorite list. I know how much Zack Saber Jr. how big of a fan of his you are, so definitely a great pick.
Yeah.
Um, so now for my number one, um, going back to Ray's first choice that he had, on mine, this is my favorite. Punk, CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre, Hell in a Cell. Um, and like Ray said before, it was the culmination of a great feud between Punk and McIntyre. Um, Obviously, it was a slow build. Punk gets hurt, um, and you know the great idea of having Drew, capitalize on that, take credit for it, for hurting him, really pushing that heel turn, because obviously Drew had been a face for so long. Um, and then just the story that they told of Punk, continuously costing Drew McIntyre the title, you know, costing him matches, preventing him from winning the title. Obviously, he cost him at WrestleMania, and McIntyre only held it for about 40 seconds or something like that, minute something. Um, and then to be able to tell that story while Punk is recuperating, over these different matches, these different pay-per-views, um, to then have it get in the ring at SummerSlam and at Bash at Berlin, I believe. And then the final payoff being in Hell in a Cell, which for the match itself was great. A true fight, kind of like we said with Chris Statlander and Will Nightingale. It's a match you want to see between two people who are supposed to hate each other. They're supposed to look like they want to kill each other. In Punk's case, he almost did kill Drew McIntyre, like we said. Um, so a great match, a great feud. Really, had everybody's attention, wanting them to see what was going to happen. And also, too, a little bit of a side note on the Hell in the Cell itself. It had really just been watered down, devalued. A Hell in the Cell match is supposed to be, you know, a match that you guys have who hate each other, who this is going to be hell. in a cell, and obviously they can't have the bloody brawls that they had before, like they used to have with Shawn Michaels and Triple H, Michaels Undertaker, Brock Lesnar Undertaker, things like that. But still, you had some blood in there, which if you're fighting in a cage, you're gonna bleed. It's not believable if you don't bleed. Um, it's a regular looking cell and using weapons, things like that. So it was a return to what Hell in the Cell is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be just a match that you guys have in a cage. It's supposed to be a brutal fight, and just overall a great feud, and really, I think elevated the profile of McIntyre a lot. He really hadn't had that aura about him after the pandemic. So his thing with Punk really elevated him up to being a top heel in the company, and I think it's going to do well for him, going forward.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, the Hell in a Cell had really become, excuse me, what a cage match was prior to Hell in a Cell, which is just a cage match. Hell in a Cell is supposed to be the violent, cathartic ending to something that needs to end. You're supposed to get color. There's supposed to be weapons. It's supposed to be violent and tiresome and gruesome and physically, mentally taxing. And that's what this is. This was. And, credit to Triple H for restoring the feeling, so to speak, for Hell in a Cell, for bringing back that gravitas that it needs. Just like Money in the Bank, some of these matches have really lost their luster because of pay-per-views being named after them, how readily available they are, how often they happen. There's it's supposed to be something fun about this, something different, something unique, and this had that feeling. Um, and a lot of that can be credited to Punk and Drew McIntyre, who, I mean, everyone knows how great Punk is. He really became a heel throughout this feud, and because of who he is and the legacy he has, no one can stop loving him. But Drew McIntyre, man, he's been a champion before, but this showed a dimension to him that we didn't know he had. An added layer of depth. I'll always prefer Drew McIntyre, the babyface. I loved his run as champion a few years ago, but this is phenomenal stuff from him.
Yeah, and also too, another aspect of this match that I liked was the aftermath of it, where they had Punk barely able to walk out, had to get oxygen. Drew laid out in the ring, and then the next night Punk comes out. He looks like he went through a war inside of a cage.
Mhm.
McIntyre, obviously he just came back on Raw this past Monday. So I like the fact that they really sold the effects of this. Like, this was a brutal war. This wasn't something that you can just turn around and come back and wrestle the next night. Like, this is something that we put everything we had into it to vanquish somebody that we wanted to finally defeat. And the fact that they sold that really made it that much better. So that's why it's my number one for the fall.
We Jordan and I are working on the year end. We they're going to be year end lists, top 10 wrestlers, top 10 matches, promotion of the year, wrestler of the year, things like that. There's going to be that, but the end of 2024 marks the first half of this decade, and we're combing through the best matches of the decade, some of the ones we love the most, and we're making lists, best matches of the decade. And I have a feeling this is going to show up on your list. Probably, is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, it'll be on there.
This is a great match, and everything it kind of exemplified everything we grew up loving about Hell in a Cell, which was the unpredictability and violence of it all. Which is overdone can be a bad thing, but when it's exercise in moderation is phenomenal, like this match was. Um, so yeah, I mean, in the coming month or so, look forward to those episodes. Um, I'm sure we'll have plenty of great topics between now and then. For the rest of December. Saturday night's main events coming up. We have World's End at the end of the month. So more to look forward to. Follow us on Twitter. I have all my bylines from the websites I write for, the Augusta Free Press, the Sportster, are below in the descriptions. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think about our list, and what were your five favorite things of fall 2024. What did you love about this season in wrestling? How do you think compared to the past, the summer and the spring and fall, I guess winter last year? Let us know what you think. Um, Talk to him, Jordan.
Top dogs out.